Have you ever stood in a crowded room and felt nothing but static? Everyone's talking, everyone's performing, but you're just watching. Not judging, not bored, just observing. Like you're behind a glass, in another dimension, like the watcher, seeing the patterns nobody else notices. That's not loneliness. That's recognition. You've always known something was off about how the world expects you to function. They want you to chase approval, to hustle for validation, to compete for scraps of attention like it's oxygen. And you tried it once, maybe twice, because that's what they told you adults do. But it felt empty, hollow, like wearing someone else's skin. The wolf never wears others' face. The zeta doesn't perform for crowds because crowds don't feed what moves inside him. He doesn't avoid people out of fear or contempt. He just recognizes that most social rituals are theater, and he's not interested in acting. Marcus Aurelius wrote that most of what disturbs us is self-imposed. The opinions we adopt, the roles we play. Strip those away and what's left is just you, raw and undistorted. That's where the zeta lives naturally. You didn't choose this detachment, you just woke up one day and realized the game everyone else was playing didn't require your participation. And instead of panicking, you felt relief. Because being different isn't the wound, pretending to be someone else is. When was the last time you tried to justify your choices to someone who wasn't going to understand anyway? Most people feel an itch, a compulsion to make others see their perspective. They need witnesses to validate their decisions. They build entire arguments in their heads before anyone even asks. It's exhausting just watching them. You stop doing that. Not because you're arrogant or secretive. You just realize that explanation is a form of seeking permission. And you don't need permission to exist the way you exist. Nietzsche talked about the herd mentality, how most people surrender their will to collective thinking because standing alone feels too heavy. They need consensus like they need air. But the zeta? He breathes just fine in silence. Studies on self-determination theory by Deci and Ryan in 1985 found that intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from within, is far more sustainable than external validation. People who rely on outside approval eventually collapse when that approval is withdrawn. But those who operate from internal compass? They're unshakable. You've learned this through experience. You've watched people twist themselves into shapes just to fit narratives that weren't even theirs. You've seen the cost of constant explanation, the dilution of self, the performance fatigue. So you stopped. You act, you move, you decide. And if someone asks why, you might answer once. But you don't defend. You don't convince. You don't beg for understanding. Because the people who matter won't need an essay. And the people who don't matter won't read it anyway. Do you remember the last time you announced a plan before executing it? Most people can't help themselves. They share the vision before laying the first brick. They talk about the book they're writing after writing the first page, the business they're starting after choosing the location, the body they're building after day one. And then happens what was meant to be happen. The applause for the idea drains the fuel needed for the work. The zeta operates in silence because he understands that attention before achievement is poison. It satisfies a craving that should only be fed by completion. When you tell people what you're building, your brain releases dopamine as if you've already built it. Suddenly the hard part, the actual building, feels less urgent. Psychologist Peter Gallwitzer discovered this in 2009. He found that when people announce their goals publicly, they're less likely to achieve them. The social recognition tricks the mind into feeling accomplished without accomplishing anything. It's a neurological shortcut, a hack that sabotages momentum. So you stopped sharing blueprints. You stopped posting progress updates for validation. You went underground with your ambitions, not out of secrecy, but out of self-preservation. Sun Tzu said that all warfare is based on deception, even deceiving the enemy about your position. And every time you announce your next move, you invite distraction disguised as support. The zeta builds in the dark because darkness is fertile. No eyes watching, no voices doubting, no premature praise rotting the foundation. Just him, the work, and the relentless forward motion. You reveal nothing until it's undeniable. And by then, explanation is irrelevant. Have you ever spoken and felt the very room grow heavy as if your words had weight? Your voice is not just sound. It is a low-frequency vibration that settles in the chest of the listener, not their ears. It is deep, muffled, but soft. A godly announcement that doesn't need to shout to command the cosmos. People don't just hear you, they memorize you. They chuckle hours later, the echo of your meaning finally detonating in their mind. A low hum like distant thunder, the kind that doesn't scream but makes every animal in the forest go still. When you finally break your silence, it's not noise, It's an announcement from somewhere ancient. The zeta doesn't speak often because he doesn't need to. He watches, he listens, he absorbs. And when the moment demands it, when words are actually necessary, he opens his mouth and the frequency changes. Not louder, deeper. Not aggressive, absolute. Every syllable digs. Every pause carries more meaning than most people's sentences. Your tone doesn't ride on the surface. It burrows into the listener's mind and stays there. Days later, they'll remember not what you said exactly, but how your words made gravity feel heavier. This is the instrument of a man who operates from a profound internal reservoir. There is no need for theatrical emphasis because the truth, when spoken from the core, carries its own emphasis. The Roman Stoic Seneca understood this economy of speech, warning that a long and noisy life is not what we need, but a deeply felt one. Your voice is the embodiment of that depth. Each word is filtered through a lifetime of observation, making it dense with meaning. It doesn't skim the surface of social chatter. It sinks to the bottom of things. Neurological studies on vocal perception show that lower-pitched, measured voices are consistently associated with perceptions of authority, competence, and trustworthiness. Your voice bypasses the critical, conscious mind and speaks directly to the primitive brain, the seat of instinct and emotion. It is the sound of certainty in a world of chatter. It is the anchor in the chaos. When you speak, you are not asking for attention. You are distributing a truth that others will eventually discover for themselves. When did you realize that not everyone deserves access to your inner world? Most people learn this too late. They hemorrhage energy across a dozen surface-level friendships, toxic relationships, colleagues who drain more than they give. They smile through it, play nice, convince themselves that staying open is somehow noble. You don't do that anymore. The zeta protects his energy with the same ruthlessness a king protects his treasury. Not because he's cold or antisocial, but because he understands that energy is finite. Every conversation, every interaction, every minute spent in someone's presence is a transaction. And most people are taking far more than they're giving. You felt it? That heaviness after spending time with certain people, like your soul's been drained through a straw. The zeta recognizes these energy vampires instinctively and cuts them off without ceremony, without guilt. Epictetus said that we can't control external events, only our responses to them. But you take it further. You control who gets close enough to become an external event in the first place. You've built walls not out of fear but out of wisdom. Studies on emotional contagion by Hatfield in 1993 showed that emotions transfer between people like viruses. Spend time with anxious people, you become anxious. Surround yourself with chaos, you absorb chaos. The zeta understands this at a cellular level. You watch how they move through the world before letting them into yours. You say no without explanation. You ghost without apology. You disappear when your instinct tells you someone's frequency is wrong, because protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's survival. Do you feel the residue after a bad day, after a draining conversation, after scrolling through other people's chaos? Even with walls, even with boundaries, some negativity seeps through. It clings to you like smoke in fabric. And the zeta knows that protection isn't enough. You need purification. Most people carry their stress like a badge. Some people have victimhood bias. They pile up resentment, disappointment, anger, letting it compound until they're walking around with years of emotional debris weighing them down. They wonder why they're exhausted, why nothing feels light anymore. You don't let it accumulate. The zeta has rituals. Not spiritual theater, not Instagram-worthy self-care routines. Real, functional practices that strip away the psychic grime before it hardens. Maybe it's solitude in the early morning. Maybe it's physical exertion that burns through mental fog. Maybe it's just sitting in silence until the noise settles. Seneca wrote letters to himself at the end of each day, reviewing his actions, his reactions, cleansing his mind of what didn't serve him. The zeta does the same instinctively. He doesn't carry yesterday's weight into tomorrow. He processes, releases, resets. Research on cognitive load by Sweller in 1988 found that the brain has limited processing capacity. When you don't clear emotional and mental clutter, your decision-making suffers, your clarity dims, your energy stagnates. You shed other people's opinions like dead skin. You release expectations that aren't yours. You wash away the residue of interactions that tried to pull you off center, because a powerful energy field requires maintenance. The zeta doesn't just protect his aura. He actively purifies it, keeping it sharp, keeping it clean, keeping it untouchable. Have you ever felt a physical need to tear a comfortable truth apart, while others consume it? For the zeta, acceptance is not the default response like others do. His mind does not just seek answers, it seeks truth. It is compulsively driven to dismantle them, to peel back the layers of varnish and rot until the raw, unvarnished grain of the matter is exposed. He doesn't believe what he sees what he must believe after breaking it down to its components. This is not skepticism. It is a more primal process of analysis. It is the application of a relentless, internal pressure that tests every idea, every system, every person against the anvil of reality. The philosopher Nietzsche called this philosophizing with a hammer, not to destroy, but to tap idols and listen for the hollow sound. You do this instinctively. You are not satisfied with the what. Your compulsion is to uncover the why, no matter how uncomfortable the discovery. This aligns with the Stoic practice of hypolepsis, the act of withholding judgment to properly dissect an impression. Marcus Aurelius wrote of stripping away the story to see the thing itself. You do not hear an accusation and react. You dissect its origin, its intent, its underlying structure. You look at a societal norm and see not tradition but a mechanism of control. You observe a relationship and see not love, but a transaction of needs. This makes you dangerously clear-eyed in a world that runs on comfortable fictions. You cannot unsee the wiring behind the walls. You are the one who points to the magnificent tapestry and instinctively identifies the single loose thread that, when pulled, will unravel the entire image. This is not a choice. It is how you are built. You don't seek the truth. You are compelled to excavate it, even if you unearth your own burial in the process. Do you feel the crack first like ice underfoot, and then notice how the same crack lets in light that the whole sheet never could? You know the sound of breaking. You also know how to turn the shards into something sharper. You do not hide from fracture. You make it material. For Zetas, the problem is irrelevant. Pain is not a detour, it is torque. Marcus Aurelius taught that obstacle is the way. Nietzsche taught that suffering can become strength. Studies on post-traumatic growth by Tedeschi and Calhoun, 1996, found that meaning often emerges after rupture, not despite it. Be wary though, survivorship bias skews the story. Not every breaking yields gold. Some breakages are just breaks, and pretending otherwise is cowardice. They will tell you to numb, to perform healing as comfort theater, that numbing is cowardice and theft of potential. He who hides his scars behind jokes forgets to learn the map written in the wound. Practice rituals that reforge, short cold exposure to shock the system, reflective writing that names the wound, a daily small vow that rebuilds trust with yourself. Convert grievance into metric, weigh what you learned, not only what you lost. You do not romanticize pain, you translate it. You do not seek meaning from others, you extract it from consequence. This is not suffering for art, it is craftsmanship. Reforge, then move with the new edge. Do you ask what remains when the voice goes quiet, when the house empties, when the trophies lose their shine? You do not chase immortality, you build heirs to a way of being. Csikszentmihalyi found that deep work, when skill meets challenge, creates meaning that outlives applause. Ryan and Deci discovered that autonomy and competence breed lasting drive. Translate those results into practice. Make systems that carry your discipline, not monuments that beg for praise. For Zetas, legacy is not vanity, it is a geometry of influence. You lay vectors, not statues. Do not let your aura become a throne for petty greed, or a rumor mill of half-truths. He confuses reverence with entitlement, he mistakes noise for authority, and the field he ruins teaches others to plunder. Use your presence to cultivate standards. Mentor ruthlessly, teach refusal as often as you teach skill, withdraw light to show where stewardship matters. Sun Tzu urges strategic patience. Nietzsche demands honest becoming, Marcus Aurelius insists on quiet duty. Combine them into a practice that outlasts you. You plant rituals, not trophies. A weekly test, a ledger of favors, a quiet hand that corrects without spectacle. You codify how you are treated, you train successors to protect the edge, you convert charisma into structure. Zetas do this instinctively, you do it deliberately. Leave behind something that teaches the future to guard its own flame. Are you ready to make your absence as instructive as your presence? Do you engage with the world fully, yet feel a part of you is always observing from a great, untouchable distance? This is the final discipline. The Zeta does not abstain from life. He participates with a fierce intensity, but his core remains sovereign, unclaimed. He can build, create and fight with everything he has, yet he holds it all with an open hand, never a clenched fist. This is not coldness. It is the ultimate freedom. The Stoics called this the discipline of ascent, to engage with preferred outcomes without becoming enslaved to your desire for them. You can pour your entire being into a project, a relationship, a battle, yet the destruction of that thing does not destroy you. Your identity is not welded to your possessions, your status, or even your relationships. You are the silent mountain that experiences the weather on its slopes, the storms, the sunshine, the erosion, all without mistaking any of it for the mountain itself. This is the essence of what Seneca meant when he wrote, "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." The Zeta has made his peace with the eventual loss of all things. Therefore, he is free to truly enjoy them without the desperate, clinging anxiety that poisons ordinary men. He fights for what is his, but he does not weep over its inevitable passing. His compulsion is to experience reality in its fullest texture, both the pleasure and the pain, without ever handing the keys to his inner citadel to any of it. This detached attachment is your final, unassailable fortress. It allows you to move through the world with a power that seems almost supernatural, the ability to care deeply, yet walk away cleanly. You are fully in the game, but you are never of the game. You are the player who can bet everything on a single hand, not because you don't care if you loses, but because you have already accepted every possible outcome. And thus, you cannot be broken by any of them. Thanks for watching.